Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. Today's project is going to be another zippered bag. I'm going to show you how to make it in two sizes. I'm going to also use two different stabilizers in this as well. First one is Decaville and the second one is going to be a lightweight fusible batting or a palin. I'm using quilting cotton in one of them and the other one is going to be a curtaining sample fabric. Stick around and I will show you how to make this curvy kind of a bag. Should be fun. I'm going to be making two of these in slightly different sizes. I'm going to use a continuous zip, and for the smaller one I'm going to use a regular dress zip. I'll put the measurements up on the screen for all of these shortly, and I'm going to also do them with two different types of stabilizers. This one here is a lightweight iron-on palin or a lightweight fusible wadding, and this one is using the Decaville. So I'm doing this so that you can see how to do it with the two different zip styles, how easy it is to adjust a pattern for yourself, and also so that you can see the difference with the finished product with different stabilizers. I'll set this one aside for the moment. The fabric that we have is 17 inches by 13.5 inches. This is the lining. For the main, I'm using a piece of, it's a sample swatch fabric, but it's actually a curtaining fabric. This is 17 inches by 13.5 inches. I have a fusible palin, a very lightweight fusible palin, 16 inches by 12.5 inches. So our wadding or palin is half an inch smaller around all the sides. Then I have just whatever's left over from the main fabric. I need two tabs that are 2.5 inches by 5 inches. So I'm just going to see what I can get out of this long piece of fabric. And then we need a zip as well. So I've got my zip, and we'll need one or two sliders. That'll be up to you how many you want to have in your bag. Before we can work out how long our zip needs to be, we need to create our pattern. We'll set the fabric aside for the moment. I'm going to draw straight onto my piece of palin. It doesn't matter whether you mark onto the fusible side or the other side. And what I'm going to do is mark 3 inches from the outside corner on both sides. And we'll do that at this side as well. So we only need to do this on two sides. So I've got a 3-inch mark there and here, as well as here and here. Fold your stabilizer in half, bring the raw edges together, and I'll pin that in place just so that it doesn't shift. Then we want to find something with a curve to mark the curve on the edge here. A plate will work, whatever you can find that's handy, that will give you a curve going from those two 3-inch marks. Make sure your fabric's lined up properly on the sides and the top, and then we can draw in that curve. Repeat for this side. And on this same side, fold this in half and we'll mark the centre. From the centre, we're going to come out 1 inch on either side, and we're going to come down 1 inch. Join that line. And these are now the areas that we're going to cut. What we have here now are the two curves here. We'll cut out all 4 corners. On this section here, we've got 2 inches across and 1 inch in. And this is going to form our boxed corner. Take your scissors and cut around the curve. We'll cut out the box. And there we have the pattern for our bag. From here, we can now work out how long we need our zip to be. So you can do it two ways. You can take a tape measure and measure from here all the way around, or you can just take a continuous zip and line that up around the edge and leave an overhang. So I want to leave about 1/2 inch on either side. So based on the fabric dimensions that I've given you here, we have a 26-inch zip. What we need to do now is take our main fabric piece, place our batting or wadding over the top, and line that up so that it's even. You've got an even 1/2 inch seam all the way around, and we can fuse this onto the main fabric. When I do this one, I'm going to use exactly the same technique. I'll be drawing my pattern onto the Decaville, cutting the shape out and fusing it onto my main fabric. Once you have your fusible product adhered to your outside fabric, we can take both pieces, the lining and the main, place them right side together, line them up perfectly, pin them together so that the fabric doesn't shift. And once you've done that, we can mark a cutting line all the way around. I'm going to have a 3/8 inch seam allowance on this bag, which is 1 centimetre. So I'm just going to mark a cutting line. The only reason we need to do this is because we're going to be attaching a zip to the bag, and we need to cut off some excess fabric so that we can actually have the zipper tape sitting nice and evenly. With my palin fused to my main fabric, my lining piece of fabric is underneath, and I've got the layers all pinned together so that they don't shift. We can go and cut that out. There we go. We have our fabric and our pattern all ready to go. Remove your pins, and we're now ready to put our zip on. So take your main fabric and your continuous zipper tape, divide that, and then we can take our tape. You want the teeth to be facing inward and the edge of the tape facing out, and you want it faced down. Line it up on the edge of your fabric, leaving a little bit of an overhang of about 1/2 inch, and then you can clip that together all the way around to this side. Now I like to use double-sided tape because it makes it a little bit easier to work with. I'll place that right around the edge. It doesn't matter if it pleats or ripples, because it's such a fine tape, it's not going to affect any of our stitching at all, or the fabric. Remove your tape, and then we can place our zipper tape down. I'm just going to pinch it down slowly, especially around the curve. We can clip these curves as well, but I'm going to do that later. So it's sitting nicely just on the curve there. Continue around on the straight, and then go slow again around the curve. And back down the straight again. I didn't leave myself much room there, did I? Ideally, I would have liked a little bit more, just to allow a little bit excess, just in case, but that's fine. Then we need to run some more tape around the top of the zipper tape. Remove the paper, and then we can take our lining piece and place that right side down. This is the pretty side, or the right side. We'll have the two sides facing, and we can line this up along the edge of the tape. I like to do this side first before I go to the top, and then I'll do this other end as well. And then hopefully everything else will line up. And if it doesn't, the fabric is easily removed from the adhesive so that you can reposition it. Once you've done this side here, there's a fair bit of resistance just around the curved edge here. So just whilst we're playing around with the fabric, I'm just going to grab a couple of clips, keep those layers in place so they don't move while I'm doing the other side. Move your lining out of the way, and we're going to take the other side of the zip and put that on as well. So we'll put the tape down, the zip, and then the lining. Okay, now that we've done that, we've got the zip sandwiched between the main and the lining. I want to draw a line on the lining right down the centre here. We don't have anywhere to turn this bag through, so I'm going to create a false seam for the bottom. I'm going to come in 5 inches from either side and leave a small gap in the centre, which is 5 inches. make another mark an inch further on as well. We've got the outside edge 4 inches for the first mark and then another inch on the second mark, and draw a line on there. Later on we're going to actually fold this and then do a 1/4 inch seam allowance a little bit further on and slash that seam open so that we can turn the bag the right way around. For now we're going to go to the machine and sew all the way around the entire zip. And whilst I'm at the machine, I'm going to take my scrap piece of fabric that is 2.5 inches wide, fold that in half to the centre, and then fold that in half again, and we'll stitch down both long edges. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing with my regular zip. I've made sure this is long enough all the way around. For this smaller size, I'm using a 50 centimetre or 20 inch zip. We're going to place the left side of the zip down on this section here. So open it out all the way, and where the metal clamp is, we're just going to have that overhanging a little bit. I don't want to have that in my sewing area, and I will be trimming that off later. If you're going to make these to sell, I've popped my label on the front, so you want to find the centre of the longest side, and this is actually going to be the front of my bag. So if you are sewing to sell, you want to make sure you get your label on before you do this. So I've got plenty of overhang here, which is good. I do want that. And I'll get another row of tape, and I'm going to put this zip on in the same way, but I'm not going to have it detached at the bottom. When you do put a regular zip on one of these kinds of bags, we've got our opening at this end and the closed end over here, which we'll cut off. But when you're starting the other side, start with the opening end of the zip, not the closed end. And you want to make sure you line it up nice and evenly, and you can check that by folding the fabric on the boxing and just making sure that the metal clamps line up on your zip. And that's going to give you a nice even zip all the way around. So we've just overcome the most difficult part of this whole process, and that is clipping the zip to the curves. We're going to take this to the machine now. I'm going to sew the zip down on both sides of both of my bags. I'm also going to stitch down the long sides of both of my tabs for the 2 bags. Now it's best to put your zipper foot on when you're applying the zip. When you're going around the curve, just go slowly and make sure you don't have any ripples in your fabric. And then continue on for the next half. And you'll apply the regular zip on in the same way. We've got the zip attached now, and remember we've drawn a line across the centre here. I'm going to fold this straight down that line. So this is the line that we've drawn earlier, and it's just a 5-inch line straight down the centre. I've pinched that fabric together straight down the centre there, and from this clip to this clip I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch from that folded edge. This is just to create a false seam so that I can turn my bag the right way around. I'll do the same for the other one as well. There's the false seam I've done, and I've also marked in pink so that you can hopefully see this. I've sewn up from here up to here. There's the seam, and I'm going to open up the stitches in the middle there. The reason I've put the stitches there is because they will set a nice crease for us. When we close this bag up later, it'll be easier to close it up again. Beginning of our sewing and end of our sewing, we're going to rip the stitches just in this section here. And on that fold up here, I'm just going to take my seam ripper and the same area where I've opened out the stitching, I'm going to go in with my seam ripper and just slice along until I get to the end of that section where the stitches have been pulled out. And then you can just finger press that seam that we've just opened up. That will become our stitching line later on when we close up the bag. And we have our opening here, and we can turn the bag the right way round. Now before we do that, we need to clip the curves. So you can see how these curves are kind of bunching up. When we clip these curves, you want to clip up to the stitching line, but not through it. And by clipping these curves, that's helped relax this corner. It's not going to try and crawl up as much as it did before. Go and do that on all 4 curves. Once you've clipped the curves, we can turn this the right way around, and we are going to do some top stitching next. We've got our bag turned the right way around. We can now go and top stitch all the way around this entire bag, and we'll do the same for the other one. Okay, the one with the regular zip is done, and what you can do now is bring the edges together and just come up part way without closing it fully. We want to turn this bag inside out again, so go back through the lining and this one here, we'll get back to this one in a minute. This one here we need to put our zip sliders on, and I think I will put 2 on this one. So just bring the edges together. I have the curved edge of the slide facing me. So I've got one side on, and then I'll turn around, go to the other end and do the same thing. Make sure your fabric edges are lined up. And then we can close this up until the zip meets in the middle, and just make sure that's nicely aligned there. If you're happy with that, then we can open this out just a little bit. Go back through the opening, and we're going to turn this all the wrong way around. Be careful not to open your zip up. When you're turning this around the wrong way, you want to be careful looking for the opening. You don't want to pull the zipper teeth apart. So just get in there gently. It's going to be a little bit awkward because we've got the side edges of our zip closed, but it's manageable. Open out the main section of the bag and line up the zip with the center of the seam here. And we've also got to get our tabs. So take your tab, fold that in half, and just slide that in on top of the zip in the main section of the bag. Bring those edges together. You can trim your zip at this point. Bring these edges together, and we've got our little zipper tab in there as well. Turn it around and do the same with the lining. So we want to attach the lining and the main at the same time. Bring it up to the corner and line it up as best you can. And we'll take this to the machine, and we're going to sew across here. The seam guide will be the edge of your palin just on the side there. And do the same for the other end. Take your other tab and pop that in on the outside of the bag between the zip and the main fabric. And we'll do the same for the lining. With this one that's got the regular zip, we're going to do the same thing, but you'll see that the zip is already closed at one end. That's fine. All we need to do is insert our tab. I'm using Decoville on this one, and it's terrible stuff to use on a bag that needs to be turned in and out like this. I won't use Decoville on something like this again. So we'll do the same here, just sew along here, and I'll do that twice just to give it some extra support. And at the other end where we've got our zipper opening, the first thing I'm going to do is take this back to the machine, and I'm just going to sew this zip closed at the end there, just so that I can get a nice flat surface like that. Now in hindsight, it would have been much better to sew the end of the zip here together before we turned the bag inside out. I'm not going to turn it the right way around again because this Decaville is too stiff. I've just got a needle and thread. I'm placing the zipper ends together right beside each other. I'm just going to put a few stitches in here just so that I can keep it flat whilst we close up the end of the bag. So I've done that just so that I can keep the zipper closed at the end there, and then I can bring my fabric together, find the corners of the Decaville here, and this one. We'll do the same with the lining. Okay, this part was extremely fiddly, so I don't think I would ever try and use a regular zip to do this bag, but I think that the Decaville is actually hindering my progress as well. Don't forget to put the tab in. Now that that's done, we'll take that to the machine, sew over that, then I can trim the zip off, and then we can turn the bag the right way around. We'll do the same for this one. Sew the ends, both sides, turn it all the right way around, and when all that looks nice and neat, we can close up our openings. Because of the bulk of the tab and the zipper tape, I'm going to sew all these corners twice. I feel as though this one with the Decaville is going to be extremely hideous, but we'll see. Okay, both bags are finished. I can cut off that excess zipper tape and I'll turn everything the right way around. Once you've turned everything the right way around, we can have a look at our bag. When you've got the zip open all the way, it almost sits nice and flat. And whether you've got one zip or two really doesn't matter. You've got a really nice long bag to put your knitting needles, hair straighteners, hair brushes, or even long rulers if you're a student or a crafts person. So that's the long one. All we need to do now is go and close up this opening here. So you just pinch the edges together. That seam will want to go back underneath and we'll sew that closed. And there's your false opening closed up, and it's made it easier to turn through. This is the other one with the Decaville. It's actually turned out okay. It's just got the one zip slide on there. It'll open out. You can really get in there and see everything that you've got. With this one, we'll do the same thing. We'll just go and close up that lining. So what did you think of that? I have to say I actually struggled with this one. I thought it would be a brilliant idea to use Decaville on this. It's extremely stiff and it's almost like trying to turn cardboard through fabric. But in the end it worked out. I persevered, and I did have a little bit of trouble with the end of the opening of the zip. In hindsight, I should have actually closed up the zipper end first and then turned the bag through. It would have made it a lot easier to do the corners. You learn something every day, don't you? It's still cute. The fabric helps a lot. So I will actually sell this in the shop. This one here though is much bigger. I think it's going to be perfect for knitting needles, and you can even throw in a couple of balls of wool as well. You can make this a really nice fun knitting bag. The two bags, different sizes. I kind of like the size of this one better. I think this for myself will have more uses cosmetics, your rotary cutters and rulers, short rulers and things, cosmetic brushes even. Whereas this one, well, you'll fit a hair straightener in there, won't you? Might even fit the hairdryer. But it'll be a great one for knitting anyway. And it's that time of year at the moment. I'm probably going to put about $30 on this one. I'll put about 25 to 30 on this one. I'm not sure about that yet because it's very wrinkly. I'll see how that looks in a couple of days. But I think I'll put about $25 to $30 on this one in the shop. I'll see if there's any interest. If there is, I might make a few more for the shop. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.